Inside an apartment, David approaches his wife in the kitchen while holding a knife. Without any word, he plunges the knife into her chest, as he regrettably yells, "It's not me." Sometime later, the media dubbed David as the Puppet Man, because of how he mysteriously ended his wife's life. Currently, David is on death row, and he maintains his statement that something was controlling him at the time. It is also said that the police had rescued David's daughter Michael, from a locked cage hidden inside the closet. At present, Michael is at her college dorm listening to the news about David's sentence, which is to be carried out soon. It has been years since the incident, and Michael barely remembered glimpses of it. Her roommate Charlie tries to comfort her, after learning what Michael has been through in the past. The next day, Charlie tries to convince Michael to solve the mystery behind David's case, and Michael is glad to have a supporting friend by her side. Charlie even tries making excuses for her recent behavior, when their friends notice the changes in Michael. Meanwhile, Michael begins to have weird visions that she dismisses as a product of her imagination. In their dorm room, Charlie continues her research about the Puppet Man, and wonders if Michael inherited any of her father's traits. When she catches her sleepwalking, she sees the 3 lines on the wall that Michael draws using her blood. Charlie looks at her wrist, as Michael has a habit of scratching her skin until it bleeds. She assures her that she'll support her all the way, and figures the reason behind her sleepwalking was due to her trauma. In the morning, Charlie notices that Michael starts to zone out a lot, unaware that her friend has been having visions. After purchasing alcohol with some of their friends, Charlie leaves and Danny walks with Michael to her dorm. Inside her room, Michael gets distracted by Charlie's computer notifications, and when she looks, she is curious after she finds a file about her. She is horrified to learn that there are several videos of her while sleepwalking, and learns that Charlie is communicating with someone named Ruby. When Charlie arrives, Michael is upset and asks how long she's been documenting her, and Charlie explains that she wants to help and to make sure that she was there for her safety. Later, Michael and Charlie join their friends at the dorm terrace for a fun night. The group celebrates their upcoming graduation, and toasts for the bright possibilities in the future. When Glenn blurts about Michael's strange habits, she cannot believe that Charlie has betrayed her trust. Charlie tries to explain herself, but Michael had enough and walks away. Suddenly, Charlie freezes and tells them that she is unable to move her body. Her horrified eyes stared at Michael as she walked to the edge of the terrace, unable to control her own movement as she fell to the ground. Charlie loses her life instantly, while Michael feels that she is to blame for her friend's death. She believes that there's something wrong with her, and it is the reason that people are dying around her. After the police investigation, Michael refuses to talk to her friends, and while walking home, a crow starts following her. Even inside her room, the crow flies to her window as if trying to go inside. Later, Danny tries to check on Michael, but the woman stays quiet and doesn't acknowledge his presence. Danny stays outside in the hallway, and when he notices Michael is walking up the stairs, he follows her and wakes her up from sleepwalking. Michael shows him the video that Charlie took, and explains that according to the doctor, sleepwalking was due to her trauma. The next day, the caretaker finds a bunch of dead crows outside Michael's window, and wonders about the strange occurrences. When Charlie's mother arrives to take her daughter's stuff, Michael receives a call from a psychic named Ruby, who demands to meet her as soon as possible. Danny calls Joe and Glenn to join them on their visit to Ruby, as they think that Charlie wants them to find some answers. Ruby welcomes the group to her home, and before talking to Michael, she gathers her friends and explains the situation. Ruby tells them that there is darkness living inside Michael, and Charlie was afraid of her. As Michael looks around the house, she notices a book titled The Cult of Dolos. Before she can browse it, Ruby calls her as she is ready to answer some of their questions. She assures her that she wasn't at fault for everything, and begins the seance to summon Michael's mother Patricia. She believes that Michael can find the answer she seeks from Patricia, and after the spirit enters the psychic body, she starts writing uncontrollably on a paper. When Ruby gets her bearings back, she reads what she wrote and crumples the paper on her hands. She tries to hide what she wrote under the spirit's influence, but when the group insists on seeing the paper, it states, "I murdered Charlie." Ruby in distress insists that they leave her house, and when Michael strongly asks the meaning of it all, Ruby finds herself unwillingly writing on the paper which states, "I am Michael." Having more questions than before, the group leaves and Danny tries to comfort Michael. Michael asks Danny to not wake her if she sleepwalks, and after he leaves her, he finds Glenn and Joe researching about the Puppet Man. After going through Charlie's laptop, Joe found out that it was a book named The Cult of Dolos that led Charlie to Ruby. Suddenly, Michael appears in a trance, and starts writing on the window using her bleeding hand. It states, "Let it lie, let it die, Charlie, Charty," which terrifies Danny, Glenn, and Joe. Danny wakes Michael from her trance, and Glenn decides to leave as he feels that he has enough of all the weirdness. Later, Michael shares her past with Danny and tells him about her mom. She figures that she was the one responsible for the death around her in the past, and tells him about the death of her abusive foster dad when she was younger. She was so angry at the time, and after a while, she found him hanging on a tree with the word sorry on his belly. She starts to believe that her anger caused their death, including Charlie, and expresses her fear of the strange darkness around her. Meanwhile, Joe goes back to Ruby's house and the psychic gives her the book about the cult of Dolos. Ruby reminds her not to show Michael the book, and asks her to come back after she finds what she's looking for. Joe tries to call Glenn, but the man ignores her call. Danny drives Michael to visit her estranged father, as she feels that she needs to see him to find answers. As Joe reads the book at the library, she learns that Dolos is an evil entity who is able to control the will of anyone who conspires against him. She immediately calls Ruby and asks if they are in danger, but before the psychic can answer, Joe stiffens and drops her phone to the ground. She is terrified to find that she can't move, and drops her smoke to the book. At the same moment, Glenn is also unable to control his body, as if something is pushing him to load several heavy plates into his weights. As the book burns, the entity controls Joe to burn her face from the fire, while Glenn is compelled to drop the weight into his head. Sometime later, Danny and Michael arrive at the prison, where David has been waiting to be executed. She asks her dad why he finished off her mother, but David denies the crime and tells her that it was her who did it. He adds that it's what she was made for, as she represents the untouched pure soul, and he and Patricia were the dark chaos. He further explains that as a trinity of light and dark, the entity was born inside Michael. It turns out that David and Patricia participated in the marriage ritual as mentioned in the book, including little Michael to bring Dolos into the mortal world. Patricia was ready to carry the demon in her body in the form of a fetus, but the demon chose Michael and their plan backfired. Dolos was the spirit of trickery in Greek mythology, and he relished tricking his devotees when he entered Michael's body. David calls Michael a demon, as it was her voice in his head when he finished off his wife. Michael is horrified with what she learns, and quickly runs out when David manifests his madness. While driving back, Danny receives a call about Joe and Glenn's demise. The authorities question them about their possible involvement, as all the victims have similar marks on their bodies like Michael's foster father. Michael is devastated by the recent tragedies, and decides to end it by walking in the middle of a busy road. Dolos intervenes and stops all the cars, and when Michael tries to jump off the bridge, she ends up lying back on the pavement. When Danny arrives, he takes her to Ruby to seek her help, and tells her everything that has happened. Ruby tries to assure Michael that she is not responsible, as she is the one who takes advantage of them. She hands Danny everything that Charlie and the group paid her, and adds that she can't be able to help as everything she says would be a lie. After Danny and Michael leave, Ruby quickly calls Detective Al Rosen. As Danny drives away, Michael demands to stop the car and asks what Ruby gave him. Danny tells her that it's nothing, as Ruby is just a fake psychic and a con artist. When Michael insists, she starts controlling Danny's movement and makes him break one of his fingers. She asks him again, and Danny answers that Ruby gave their money back. Dolos in Michael's body controls Danny, and when he takes the money out, he finds that there is a message written on it. It turns out that Ruby is aware that she cannot let Dolos know of her knowledge of his presence on Michael's body, as the moment the spirit felt threatened, it tended to destroy the obstruction. Michael immediately figures that Ruby tricks her, and orders Danny to read all the messages. Ruby wrote to Danny to take Michael away from people, and to not let her know that he knows. Afterward, Danny repeatedly bangs his head into the steering wheel, and when Michael snaps out of her trance, she tries to stop Danny from hurting himself. It's too late though, as Dolos takes control of Danny's movement until he loses his life. After she helplessly watches the death of her friend, Michael walks to the police station and confesses to being responsible for all the death around her. Michael pleads to the police to shoot her, but Dolos controls all the police, and makes them shoot themselves and each other. When Detective Al silently enters the station, the spirit is unaware and Al is able to shoot Michael with a tranquilizer. He then cuffs her and takes her to Ruby, but the psychic tells him that they cannot let the tranquilizer wear off. She believes that Michael is a vessel, and keeping her unconscious will temporarily subdue the demon. She adds that mind control has always been a part of legends, which were based on some sort of real events in the past. She tells him that they need to find a new host, as the only way to banish Dolos back into the underworld, is if the entity finds peace while it is resting. Ruby prepares to summon the real Michael who is still awake inside her body, and asks the detective to uncap her. Al initially hesitates, but after explaining that it is the only way, he complies and removes the handcuff. Ruby starts the seance, and after successfully summoning the real Michael, her hand moves and writes that Dolos is currently sleeping. It also states that since her father David wants Dolos and they are of the same blood, they can try to trick the trickster. The next morning, they take Michael's body to the prison, and since David is to be executed, he is the perfect candidate for a replacement host. Ruby wakes Michael without waking Dolos, and proceeds to visit David. Michael tells her dad that she is choosing him to be the next vessel, and tries to convince David to make Dolos move inside him. The man wholeheartedly accepts to be possessed by the entity, as a last favor to his daughter. Without a way of knowing if the transfer succeeds, Michael and Ruby watch as David is to be executed. Since the executioner is unaware of Dolos's presence inside David, the entity doesn't feel threatened by them. It's too late when it realizes that David is about to die from lethal injection, and at the last moment, he tries to take control of the executioner's body. Dolos is unsuccessful because the poison has been injected already, and in a few seconds, David breathes his last. At the viewing room, Ruby believes that it is over, but the wicked smile on Michael's face tells a different story. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. You can also hit the notification bell and like the video to help the channel out. Thank you.